The ice-cold Pittsburgh Penguins are set to welcome the red-hot Colorado Avalanche to PPG Paints Arena tonight. Hunter and I are going to preview the game, talk about some roster decisions, and some thoughts on the general manager on this edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast right after this.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Good evening, hockey fans, and welcome to yet another edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am one of your hosts, Patrick Damp. You can follow me on Twitter at synonym for wet. Joined as always by the one and only, you know him, you love him, Hunter Hodes. You can follow him on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. Thank you for making this your first listen or watch of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and all the other places you get our little discussions on this fun sport each and every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. So, Hunter, before we get into what could possibly be a very ugly game tonight when the Colorado Avalanche come to Pittsburgh, we do have to get some clarification on the injuries and everything that happened during the Dallas game earlier in the week. Alex Nedeljkovic is going to be out for quite a bit with a lower body injury. Obviously, there's going to be no real timeline on young defenseman John Ludvig because, as we all know, concussions can last anywhere from a week to 2 years. So how big is this? How much of a deterrent do you think this is going to be for this team that right now is starting to dig itself a little bit of a hole?
It's a massive injury, and I went back to try to find the injury. I couldn't find it. He seemed fine when the game was over. In my view, I'm just full speculating here. It might have been when he was diving out to try to get the puck away before the Stars made it 3-1. Maybe he injured himself there. Mike Sullivan. He's not going to talk about what the exact injury is. He's never been like that for as long as he's been the head coach. He'll always say upper body, lower body, week to week, month to month, day to day, all that kind of gibberish. But he's on LTIR, so he has to miss at least 10 games or 24 days, whichever comes first. The earliest he can come back is right after my 26th birthday, November 19th. My birthday is 4 days before that. So they're going to be without him for quite a bit at this point. Magnus Hellberg was called up on Thursday. He'll be the backup for the foreseeable future. I'm excited to see what he can do at the NHL level because he's had, decent numbers at times. I mean, last year wasn't the best. He played 17 games with the Red Wings, had an 85% percentage, 3.29 goals against average, kind of meh, in my opinion. But, he's on a better team now. I think this year the Penguins are better defensively compared to where the Red Wings were last year. I still think he can at least give this team average goaltending when he comes in. You're probably not going to be playing him like you did with Nedeljkovic, where, you're going to start this guy against a really good team in the Dallas Stars. I think the Penguins are doing that to kind of help out Tristan Jarry's workload. But now that Nedeljkovic is hurt, and this could be for quite a few weeks, you're going to see Tristan Jarry's workload, I think, start to go up pretty efficiently here.
Yeah, you're definitely going to not see Hellberg unless you absolutely have to, because
like a second half of a back-to-back or something.
Yeah, and outside of the diving poke check, I do think Nedeljkovic has been pretty good. Early returns have been solid. One bonehead play does not a career make, unless it's the guy whose name I can't remember, so that even kind of negates my point. The guy who on Edmonton, or was it Edmonton or Dallas, that missed the empty net when he was like right next to it, and then they went down and got scored on. But basically, along with that, they also added in 2 other people. Obviously, everybody got thrown into a panic, including myself a little bit right away when they announced that Zahorna was going back to Wilkes-Barre, but that was just a cap move, as we came to find out. And the Penguins have sent Corey, how do we say his name? Andonvowski? I don't want to get that wrong.
I believe it's that, yes.
Well, either way, he was here for all of 5 minutes. He's back down to Wilkes-Barre, and up comes Vinnie Hinostroza, and Radim Zahorna stays here. So doesn't look like Hinostroza will play tonight, but he will probably be ready to play by Saturday. So, I mean, I was a little annoyed because I thought they were sending Big Z down, but he keeps his spot. They do all the cap shenaniganery they have to do. Do you think Vinnie Hinostroza, when he comes into the lineup on Saturday, can make any kind of a difference to this bottom six?
Hold that thought for just 1 second. I do believe it is Corey Andonovski is how you pronounce that last name. If I got it wrong, everyone, I apologize. If Pat got it wrong, I'll also apologize on his behalf. But I believe that is right.
At this point, I just want our listeners to have some fun. And if I screw up, I would like them to supercut it and, make fun of me on TikTok or Instagram Reels or Twitter or wherever, just because a lot more fun when people can have fun with you rather than pretending like we're perfect, because we're far from it.
Hey, it's better than watching this team on a nightly basis right now. That's for sure. Hopefully tonight's game actually goes the Penguins' way. It would be so Penguins for them to win this game, but we'll have more on that in a little bit, excuse me. But Hinostroza gets called up. He's been pretty decent for Wilkes-Barre this year. I believe last time I checked, he's second. He's tied for first with points. 2 goals, 4 points in 5 games. Only player that has as many points and goals as him is Sam Hood. He's having a really good year as well. So in terms of another player coming up with Zohorna, I would say Hinostroza is probably most deserving. Here, okay, I'll just get to this right now. He's not going to play tonight. At least that's what Mike Sullivan said. He said he was going to take warm-up, probably not play. Yeah, it's annoying that he's not going to come in for Jeff Carter. Jeff Carter stinks. We all know that at this point. He hasn't done anything this year. I do think Hinostroza would be an upgrade over Carter. I don't know if he's an upgrade over anyone else in the bottom 6 right now, but I do think he's an upgrade over Jeff Carter. I just don't know if Mike Sullivan is going to see it that way. Is he just bringing Hinostroza up to put him in the press box every night, or is he actually going to get a game in? And if he does get a game in or 2, who is going to come out? Because no offense, I don't know if Sullivan has the balls to scratch Jeff Carter. I really don't. I personally do not know if he has the balls to scratch someone who is making over $3 million per year. Now, if it's someone like Matt Nieto, I could see that because he's also been a ghost. But at this point, if it's up to me, I would scratch Carter and put Hinostroza in even tonight, even if he gets there in time for the game. You and I were talking about this off air because I'm sure he's probably on his way to Pittsburgh right now, and we're recording this at about 3:30 in the afternoon. I would still play him because even though he'll be gassed and a little bit tired, that's still an upgrade over Jeff Carter, who doesn't do anything on the ice at this point.
Yeah, the 2 things, there are a couple things here. One, and this is a bigger discussion we can have maybe when there's a break or something like that later in the year. It's why the triple hard salary cap in the NHL is the dumbest thing to ever exist, because they had to wait until today to call him up, even though they knew they were going to need to call him up. I also think it doesn't really matter at this point who on the 4th line you swap Hinostroza out for. They have been so bad that, yeah, I agree. The leading candidate is Jeff Carter, but the other 2, Matt Nieto, Noel Acciari, what have you done? Nothing. And we talked about that yesterday. So I agree that Jeff Carter's probably candidate number 1 to come out of the lineup for Hinostroza, but I mean, it's 6 one way, half dozen the other with this 4th line, because they've all been equally pretty bad, and it's been the sore thumb of this roster. They just have done nothing of value since the season began. So you have to hope in a similar way that Radim Zohorna going onto the 3rd line gave that line a shot to the arm and a little bit of a better identity. Getting a Vinnie Hinostroza on that 4th line on Saturday night will do the same, but that's looking a little too far ahead. And we're going to talk about tonight's game.
I do think it was going to provide a spark. I don't think it's a long-term answer.
No.
I'll say that. Again, I'll make a point that I made on the show on Wednesday. What Zohorna did, he provided a spark. You said it's a shot in the arm. It's about a game and a half of better 3rd-line play. I think if Hinostroza comes in at some point, whether it's for Acciari, whether it's for Nieto, whether it's for Carter, you can make a really good case for any of them to come out. I won't bat an eye at all. And if Hinostroza comes in, provides a spark, it's just going to be the same thing that you saw with the 3rd line. But if it doesn't lead to scoring, which is what we want the bottom 6 to start doing, again, what I said yesterday, you're going to have to go outside the organization and start getting some help, because I don't know if anyone from Wilkes-Barre, including Vinnie Hinostroza, is a long-term answer for this bottom 6. That's the point I just wanted to make.
Yeah, nobody that big. You're not going to have a Brian Rust, a Jake Gensel, a Connor Sherry, walking through that door, coming through I-80. It's just not going to happen. So eventually you're going to have to make a move, but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about more, and we will preview the game tonight against the Colorado Avalanche coming up right after this. But before we keep the conversation going, we have to talk to you about FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's right. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time than right now to get in on the action. This app, incredibly easy to use, and there is a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-under, and much, much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the National Football League. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Patrick Damp, joined as always by the illustrious Hunter Hodes. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or watch of the day. And Hunter, it's going to be this one. It could be forever or it could go down in flames because one of the hottest teams in the NHL is coming to Pittsburgh to take on probably not the coldest, but definitely one of the ones that's struggling the most in the Pittsburgh Penguins. So you've been texting me all day saying that you are just ready to cook. You've been waiting to cook. You're ready to go. So my friend, the kitchen is yours. You have all the ingredients and utensils in front of you. Cook away, my friend.
First things first, I love the Colorado Avalanche. They are such a great team. They are one of the hottest teams to start the year, 6-0-0. They have come out like a house on fire, trying to prove to everyone last year that, oh yeah, we're back after that first round exit to the Seattle Kraken. And so far, they have been unreal. In just 6 games, Mikko Rantanen has 5 goals and 12 points. Cale Makar, who I think is the best defenseman on the planet right now, 3 goals, 9 points in those 6 games. Nathan MacKinnon, 4 goals, 7 points. Arturi Lehkonen, 6 points in 6 games. Valeri Nichushkin, point per game. Ryan Johansson, about there as well. Logan O'Connor, Devon Toews. I can keep going down the list here. This team is disgustingly good. And I actually really like that Johansson trade they made over the offseason, by the way. They're getting him at $4 million, not the $8 million that Nashville was giving him, that's for sure. And he's been really good to start the year. But it all starts with their top 6. Nathan MacKinnon is a one-man wrecking crew. He torched the Penguins in both games last year. Penguins are going to have to find a way to slow him down. Mikko Rantanen, obviously, great goal scorer. They're doing all of this without Gabriel Landeskog, and I'm not even sure if he's going to play if this team makes the playoffs, if he plays next year. I don't know at this point, but it looks like he's going to miss most, if not this entire season, and they're still this freaking good. Devon Toews, I just want to thank Lou Lamoriello for giving him away for 2 second-round picks. Very clueless GM there, by the way. Cale Makar has been incredible. This Colorado team is just so mint. But I will say this. Penguins played 2 of their best games last year against that team. The first one in Pittsburgh was a little worse than the one in Colorado. I thought the Penguins were a bit outplayed during large stretches of that game, but the Penguins found a way to win, especially late in the third when they tied it and then when they won in overtime. Then they go to Denver during that major stretch. They had that back-to-back against Colorado and Dallas last year. They play, I think, one of their 3 best games in Denver. They really limit Colorado offensively. And they got plenty of production from the top 6 and the bottom 6. Heck, Jeff Carter scored in that game for the Penguins. Overall, it was a really nice game from Pittsburgh. And then they followed that up with a loss to Dallas, but I still thought they played pretty well. If they can follow that formula for how they played in those 2 games against Colorado, especially the one in Denver, they can win this game. I said it earlier, this is almost a game where it's like no one's expecting the Penguins to win, but yet they find a way to claw it out and give Colorado their first loss of the season. Now, this could go in the complete opposite direction where the Penguins get blown out 4 or 5-0. There's a pretty decent chance that does happen tonight. Let's be real with how Colorado has played. But for the Penguins to win this, they got to really limit Colorado's chances in the high danger areas and the slot areas, push them to the outside, play matchups on Nathan MacKinnon. I would put Sidney Crosby out there against him every single shift. Sid's been quiet these last couple of games. It's time to start getting him to cook a little bit more. And what better than for Nathan MacKinnon to come into Pittsburgh to maybe I don't know, is motivate the better word for that there, but just to get him really going, just because he's been off for the last couple of games. And please, we keep saying this, be nice if the bottom six wants to contribute tonight. This will be a perfect game to get it going against one of, if not the best team in hockey.
Listen, I talked about this yesterday, and this would be the perfect game to do it. Just take the aggression of the system down 10 to 15%.
That's fair. Yeah.
Because here's the deal. And this isn't an insult. This isn't a critique. This isn't me saying that the Penguins are old and washed and we need to hit the reset button. Colorado is probably faster and more aggressive than either of the back-to-back Stanley Cup winning teams in 16 and 17. This team operates at 1,000,000 miles an hour from the drop of the puck to the end of to the final buzzer. So don't try to get in a track meet with this team. It will turn into a 5-6-0 laugher. What you want to do here is, and this does kind of contradict what I said the other day, because this is a game where I'm not saying, again, go play the neutral zone trap, but this is a rope-a-dope game. This is a game where you have to sit back a little bit, keep the lanes in the defensive zone clogged up, keep these guys to the outside. Don't let them get high danger chances. When they come through the neutral zone, make sure that their only lane in is down the wall and into the corner and out of the high danger areas, and just let them punch themselves out. Let them play at 1,000,000 miles an hour. If they, since we're about 20 minutes into the show, I can make a little bit of an off-color joke here. I had a coach when I played hockey who, as much as he liked puck possession in cycling, he always said, boys, cycling is like foreplay. It eventually has to lead to scoring in one way or another. You can let them.
All right, that's just hilarious.
It was always one of my favorites. But you can let them possess the puck and do all this stuff on the perimeter and tire themselves out, and then capitalize on mistakes, because we saw it against Dallas a couple times, even in moments where they didn't score and the goal they did score. What they did was they were in the right position. They let Dallas make a risky play and they countered it. That is how you beat a Colorado. That's how you beat a Dallas. You don't try to go shot for shot with them, because if you do, you're going to lose. And again, not an indictment of the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's just how good Colorado is.
Right. And I don't want them to play the 1-3-1 that Guy Boucher used to do when he was the head coach in Ottawa and in Tampa Bay. I don't need to watch that kind of hockey on the Penguins. And the Penguins also, I don't think, have the personnel to play that. But if they go into that 1-2-2 neutral zone trap that they do, usually in the third period when they're trying to defend a lead, we saw that in the game against Washington earlier this year. If you want to do that for a good chunk, if not most of this game, and then feast on the mistakes that Colorado makes, I would be fine with that. I think that's a fair strategy for this game, because you're right. You do not want to get into a track meet with the Colorado Avalanche. They will make you pay tenfold. But if you lower the aggression down a little bit, maybe you lower the aggression of some of the pinches along the walls from the defenseman, because I know Mike Sullivan loves that in his system. I think there are plays to be made here where you can punish the Avalanche. You saw that happen a little bit in the game against Denver last year, where the Penguins capitalized on some mistakes. Obviously, Sidney Crosby had one of the goals of the year where he had that beautiful backhand past Georgiev. That was just unreal of a goal from Sid. It just shows off why his backhand is so good. If you can have a goal like that in this game, obviously that would help. But I saw other plays in that game where they just made Colorado play, just get off their game, I should say. And they feasted on it. They were a bit more patient with the puck. And I want to see that continue into this game. Use that blueprint on how you beat Colorado last year into this one. And I know Colorado's roster has changed a little bit. They're definitely improved, but still have the same coach. They still have the same star players. Penguins, I know they have quite a few new players as well, but if you can just take the lessons from that game, I do think they have a chance of winning this. Now, is it a high chance? No. I think the Penguins will probably lose tonight, but there's still a chance.
Yeah, and before we talk about what GM and president and assistant to the regional manager Kyle Dubas said yesterday, that's one of my all-time favorite cliches. All you can ask for in life and in sports is a chance. And that's what the Penguins have tonight. They have a chance. That's the thing that's great about a team that's built like the Pittsburgh Penguins. They can go out and throw out an absolute stinker like they did against the St. Louis Blues. And they can come back the next night against Dallas, play pretty well in the first and well enough throughout the rest of the game. And you think, man, this team, it might be it. And then they come out and play a team like Colorado, and they look like world beaters again.
Right.
So welcome to the experience, ladies and gentlemen. If you're new here to being a Pittsburgh Penguins fan.
This team is never boring. I'm telling you, it would be so Penguins for them to come out tonight, have a convincing win, and then get the fan base back to saying, oh, we're back. Just like all the memes that you see on social media and all that stuff. I'm excited. You know, I've always loved the Avalanche. Back to when I was a kid. Peter Forsberg is my favorite player of all time. So
yeah, man. Joe Sakic, Peter Forsberg, Raymond Bourque, the Patrick Waugh.
Yeah,
dude, those teams just so much fun. Like just the absolute best. But like I said there a little bit ago, there is one guy who does still have a pretty big belief in this team, and that's Kyle Dubas. We're going to talk about what he had to say last night on his show right after this. But first, we have to tell you about Jace Medical. The Jace case is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can also customize your case and add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. Jace now offers customizability for your Jace case with dozens of add-on medications. Choose the medications that best fit you and your family's unique needs. So go to jacemedical.com and enter the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON at jasemedical.com for a $20 discount on your order. And we're not done just yet. We also have to tell you about Sleeper. A new NHL season is here, and that brings all kinds of possibilities. And hey, that means maybe Jake Gensel scores 50 goals like one of us may have predicted. And maybe even the Penguins could pick it up and go win the Stanley Cup. You could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy hockey app of the Locked On NHL network. And Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. Now, this is the kind of game for me because, as I have said on this show before and during this ad, I'm not too great at season-long fantasy hockey. Notoriously bad. There's a lot of people on hockey Twitter you can ask. Don't invite me to your yearly fantasy because chances are I'm going to completely ruin it. So Sleeper is the app for me because I can play with my friends and because I'm an adult who puts way too much of his happiness on grown men or women playing kids games. I can also do MLB, NFL, college football, MLB. All of that's available on Sleeper. And there's a chat functionality. So when me and my buddies get on that, just like we do with video games, I can talk a bunch of trash and then they can shove it back in my face because I'm probably going to lose. So entries can be made in under a minute. All you have to do is pick whether some studs like Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, maybe Alex Ovechkin or Sidney Crosby, see if they can record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists. If you're going to get a goalie, there's saves. You can do plus minus for defensemen and even more. There's all kinds of stats. You know what you nerds like to pick when it comes to stats. So win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me on that one, Penguins fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Welcome back to this edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Patrick Damp, joined as always by the one and only, like I've said before, you know him, you love him, Hunter Hodes. And I got to say, man, Kyle Dubas last night, it was like he was a Locked On Penguins co-host for a minute there because he was cooking. He was absolutely cooking. And he had a lot to say on the GM show, and I know that most of the time the team-sponsored weekly GM show is just a bunch of marble mouth. Oh, we got to get better. We got to play 60 minutes. Good team, blah, blah. And the thing I like about Kyle Dubas is that while he did kind of say all of that, if you actually listened to it like you did, he didn't say it like he was bored and just wanted to get it over with. It's a little bit of a tone in our boy's voice. A little bit of a tone.
He seemed a little fired up. I don't think he saw this start coming from the team just based on how I was reading him while I was listening to it on my phone. One statement really caught my eye while I was listening to it. He said he would rather see his team fight out of a stretch like this than actually see his team start out, 4-2, 5-1 with the same issues, because he wants to see some of that adversity, I guess. And I was like, you know what? I thought about it. I'm like, that actually does make sense, because the Penguins, usually under Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Crystal Tang, they don't start out seasons this bad, losing 4 of their first 6 games. This is usually a team that starts out pretty quick. Heck, remember last year, Pat, they started out, 3-0-1, 4-0-1, somewhere along those lines, 4-1-1, I think, through their first 6. It was something like that. They had a really nice start, and we all saw what happened. Now, the opposite happens this year. Start out 2-4, you've lost 3 straight. Usually an older team starts out fast, and then they get tired towards the end. Now, what if this team starts out a little slow, even though they're a bit old, but then wakes up a little bit as this next month goes on, next 2 months, halfway through the season, and then all after that? That could be a factor here. And I thought that was a really interesting comment from Kyle, because he wants to see how the team responds to this losing streak before, maybe he decides to do something drastic, like, fire assistant head coach, make a trade or anything like that. But that was, I think, the main takeaway I had was that, yes, he seemed a bit upset, but he seems to really want to, I guess, challenge the players in a way to get this back on track.
Yeah, and I do want to read his whole quote here, because I have it pulled up, because it was the same takeaway I had. And obviously, I'm not going to put the kind of tone he had under it, because that's just a personalized thing, and I don't want to do any crappy impressions. But he said, "We just need to continue to build on our foundation of how we want to play, eradicate some of the stuff that has hindered us early, and use it as a lesson for how we can't do things moving ahead. Every game provides us a chance to really build out the way that we want to play and exert ourselves. And tomorrow night against Colorado, it's going to be an extraordinarily difficult test. I'm excited to see how our guys react to it." That last part is the money part to me, because you want to see how these guys react, because that can tell you a lot about your roster. We know what Crosby, Malkin, Letang, even Erik Karlsson to an extent, Jake Gensel, Brian Rust, we know what those guys are made of. They've bounced back. They've won championships. They've done just about everything you can do in this league. So now, how do some of these new guys, some of these younger guys, how are they going to react to this? Are they going to do the woe is me thing? Are they going to do the pouting and not playing their best? Are they going to become petulant? How are they going to react to adversity like this? Because as much as, and I said this about the Steelers, not to steal any thunder from our buddy Chris Carter, as much as players in professional sports say, oh no, we're focused on ourselves, we're focused on this, we're focused on what we can control, we're focused on ourselves. Just like the Steelers coming out of the preseason, that offense was feeling themselves a little bit, don't you think? The way everybody was talking them up, these guys are gonna, they're looking good in the preseason, they're gonna come out, they're gonna light some things up. All off season in preseason and training camp, all we hear is, oh man, Erik Karlsson's back. This team's going to score 1 million goals. They're going to be a juggernaut. They're going to be so good. And all of a sudden, 2-4, struggling to score a little bit. Power plays struggling. Special teams aren't that great. Goaltending's hurting a little bit. How do you respond to this? How do you grow? How do you take these hard times and dig yourselves out of them? And just like Dubas said, this is one hell of a test. Colorado Avalanche, it's not easy sledding, especially when you're hurting a little bit.
It doesn't get any bigger than this in terms of one of the best teams in the league coming. I mean, the only one I would say that's better right now is Vegas, and they're 7-0-0 to start the year. They're just lighting up every team they face at this point.
Yeah.
I know Boston 6-0 as well, but Colorado, I think, is, in my opinion, I think they're better than both of those teams. I think this is the best team in the league.
Yeah, and I mean, Colorado, Vegas, Dallas, just absolute wagons right now.
And yeah, I mean, and obviously, like I just said, I'll throw Boston in there too, because it's crazy that they're doing this without Bergeron and Krejci. This team just doesn't die. Even after I picked them to miss the playoffs, and I'm probably going to look like a moron. But I think you made a great point overall there. I think these younger players, they're going to have to maybe rely on that leadership group to be like, hey, it's go time here. We got the best team in the league coming to town. Maybe they'll see this as a trap game, even though I'm kind of starting to get to the point where I have the opinion that I don't know if trap games fully exist in the NHL and just a few other sports in general, unless a team is like fully tanking, like the Sharks, for example. They're 0-5-1 to start the year. I don't even know if that team's going to win 30 games this year. Overall, with the Avalanche, you're right. He said it best during that GM show. Let's see how this team responds to this adversity. You saw them put the pieces in place a little bit against Dallas. The process is there. They had 20 to 25 really good minutes against one of the best teams in the league. Went down a little bit in the second period. Third period, though, they played like crap. It's all about getting those 20, 25 minutes that you saw in Dallas. Get it to a full game now. And what better time to do it than right now against what I think is the best team in hockey. Georgiev, I think he's a fine goalie, but he's not Jake Ottinger. He's not Igor Shesterkin. He's not Ilya Sorokin. Get some traffic in front of him, make him move. They should be able to beat him a few times, and they were able to play pretty well against him last year. So I think the Penguins, I'm not going to go as far as to say that they have the goaltending advantage here, because Tristan Jarry, he's been fine. You can make an argument for either one, but they're not going up against a world beater in net. And that's why I think the Penguins, they definitely do have a chance of winning this game. At least that's one of the reasons why I think that.
Huge opportunity tonight at PPG Paints Arena to get this train back on the tracks. 7:00 p.m. For those of us with YouTube TV, we're not going to be able to watch it because it is on Sportsnet Pittsburgh as well as ESPN Plus. So if you're in the city of Pittsburgh, they're blacking it out for you. You can always listen to it on 105.9 The X or head to your local watering hole and find if the game is on TV. But that is going to do it for us on this edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. We will be back tomorrow to recap whatever happens in this game tonight, preview the weekend, and whatever else the Penguins decide to do over the next 18, 20 hours or so. So thank you, as always, for tuning in to the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm Patrick Damp. That's Hunter Hodes. We appreciate you guys listening, and we will talk to you tomorrow.